May I make a request to all of us out here to either switch off or at least put their mobile phones on silent. Pendulum India was formed in 1988 to promote Indian culture, art, music, and dance, and to build knowledge and awareness amongst the members of the public and propagate the richness and depth, vitality, and beauty of Indian culture and its heritage. Legends of India has always given thrust to encourage younger generation, and the Pendulum series is an effort to build meaningful dialogue around this activity. We are very fortunate that Mr. Shanta Sarjeet Singh had consented to curate this series of discussions. As you all know, Shanta ji needs no introduction. She is the Vice Chairperson of the Sangeet Academy and the Chairperson of AFAN. May I invite Shanta ji please on stage. We're extremely fortunate this evening to have an extremely distinguished panel of experts for the discussion. Let me begin by introducing Mr. Jatin Das. Mr. Jatin Das is a contemporary artist who's been painting for more than 50 years. He has held 68 one-man exhibitions in India and abroad. He's done several murals and installations as well, notably amongst these, The Journey of India, which is installed at the Parliament. It's a 67 feet long canvas and is titled From Mohenjo-daro to the Mahatma. His works now feature in several public and private collections. His works have been auctioned by the Sotheby's, Christie's, and Ocean. He's lectured extensively on innumerable art and archaeological colleges and museums, both in India and abroad. He's an advisor to many government and private bodies. He's the founder of the JD Center of Art, which is being built in Orissa. He's actively led relief and rehabilitation work in the village in Orissa after the cyclone in 1999. He's been the recipient of Utkal Awards, the Star of the Italian Solidarity of the Italian government, and of course the Padma Bhushan in January 2012. He's been conferred and de-lit by the Utkal University. Very interestingly, he has Pankha, which is a collection of 6,500 hand fans and associated objects, which was started about 28 years ago. It's been exhibited internationally and nationally. And there's a book that is being published around it. It's called To Stir the Still Air. Welcome, Mr. Jatin Das. Let me introduce our Mr. Shakti Maira. Mr. Shakti Maira is a sculptor, noted sculptor, artist, thinker, and columnist. In his career as an artist and sculptor, he has had more than 26 one-man exhibitions in India, USA, and Europe. His work is exhibited in the National Gallery of Modern Art and extensively in corporate houses and private and public collections around the world. He's been writing columns for First City and Design Today magazines. He's written a book called Ananda, Rethinking Indian Art and Aesthetics. Ananda focuses on the present and the future and the contemporary art and its place in the emerging global art scene. So his views are very pertinent to the subject this evening. And let me introduce Let me also introduce Dr. Ashok Vajpayee. Dr. Ashok Vajpayee is a former civil servant, a noted poet, essayist, and literary cultural critic, apart from being a cultural arts administrator. He's been the chairman of the Lalit Kala Academy. He's published 23 books in poetry, criticism of art, and was awarded the Sahitya Academy Award. Some of his books are Kahin Nahi Wahin. His notable poetry collections include Sheher Tat Bhi Sambhavna Hai, Tatpurush Bahuri Akela, A Bharat Se Giri Matraएं, Umeed Ka Dusra Naam, and so on. In his career as an administrator, he's been the Secretary and Vice Chancellor of Secretary of Culture and the Vice Chancellor of Mahatma Gandhi Antarashtriya Hindi Vishwavidyalaya, Chairman of the Bharat Bhavan Trust, and a trustee of the Indira Gandhi National Center of Arts. And he's also been a member of the ICCR and been on the executive board of the Sangeet Natak Academy. He's won numerous awards, including the Dayavati Modi Kavi Shekhar Samman and the Kabir Samman in 2006. His work has been translated into many Indian languages besides English, French, and Polish. He's also been very active in translating Polish works into English. And may I welcome Dr. Shobha. Shantaji, may I request you to...
To my eminent panel, many thanks for agreeing to participate in this thought-provoking subject, to which I'll return a second later, and to the members of this audience, many distinguished people here. I thank you for being here to share our thoughts and perhaps to contribute your own. The topic today, art today, where are the artists, could be a little puzzling for most of you, because here we are not in the numerical business of whether the art scene is thriving or not thriving, or whether there are more artists today than there were 20 years ago, 10 years ago, but we are really looking at the deeper philosophical issue of what exactly is art. By enlargement, what is creativity? And when we are looking at it, it is in the framework of what I would like to call the third machine age. Because today, when everybody is busy doing selfies, and in those selfies discovering artistic potential, and with the means and material of rearranging the technological chromosomes in such a way that they can actually be quite creative by their definition and perhaps by some other people's. But what exactly is what we would like to believe is art, let alone great art? And in that, a very quick recap of the first machine age, which happened in the, I would say roughly, in the end of the 19th century, when for the first time, beginning with Britain and then spreading to other European countries, with Bresson's invention of steam technology, learning how to make steel out of pig iron, and thereby starting this whole process of manufacturing and on the process of replication. All of that happened. This would perhaps go on till, one would say, the First World War. And from the First World War could be the second industrial age, the technological age, where we go into the beginnings of the communication technology. We go into telephone and we start with the computer, a rough, matrix for the computer. We are already with the telephone, the radio, with trains and the entire rudiments of technology. And now, of course, we are in the age where I personally don't know where I stand and where machine stands. The technology stands. Which appliance are they talking about when they talk about, this apps and that apps? I am frankly lost. So I would imagine that my generation would be a bit at sea in certain aspects of this technology, though I have taught myself and I'm very, very okay with computer technology, but the speed at which technology is overtaking the arts is something else again. And in order to discuss that, I have invited my friends here, and I would like to start with Jatin, because... Alright, we'll start with Ashok. because, you know, he will have a literature, the poets, the philosophers' point of view anyway. And before we come to the artist per se, it would be good to see that. Okay, thank you.
Well, friends, Shantaji has described the scene in such a large manner, it's very difficult to locate art in this rather cosmic growth of technology and other things. But let me start by saying that let us look at the art scene itself. Art has always this problem. Art needs its own technology. I mean, all arts need technology of some kind or the other. Now, apart from needing that technology, our art has always tried to respond, if possible to domesticate, if possible to take it around, make creative use of it, imaginative use of technology, and such other things. So art and technology have been facing each other in various stances. There have been movements which could not have been thought of without the technology's intervention or presence. That is one. The second is that although there is a new kind of, and sometimes in our times of ourselves, we have new media, videography, and such other art forms which were unthinkable even 15 years ago, and now many people who just, so this is the second, where you are using the technology for creative purposes. 3, there is a vast body of art which is uninfluenced by all this. They are still, you may call them the new primitives, in the sense that they believe that the job of art is to look at the world with a sense of mystery, with a sense of wonder, and try to do something in whatever they can. Now, for them, if technology is a help, it's fine. If it doesn't, it doesn't matter. So they kind of coexist in many realms simultaneously. They are doing something which I'm calling primitive, one can call it classical, or conventional, or traditional. There are any number of people in the visual arts, like there are any number of people in performing arts and in other fields, who are doing what the classical artists have always been doing. That's it. And to them, it doesn't really matter whether you are doing videography or no, or things like that. They are open to all this, but they're not necessarily succumbing to the temptation. This is one category of people. The other category of people who obviously are responding more. So for instance, we now have a vast body of installation art. It has started with some kind of a non-technological, shall we say, phenomena. Now it has become highly technological. So you use kinds of technologies, and from Anish Kapoor to Vivan Sundaram, whoever you like, they all use all kinds of machines and things of that kind to create that kind of an art. So that is the second kind of art. The third is that, or there might not be a third, but there could be thought of where the boundaries between arts are blurry. In visual art, there is a thing called performance art, which is different from performing art. So it's a performance art. A person uses his whole body and paints it, or does all kinds of things, or paints with the body and things of that kind. And there are performance artists who do only that. They are not. So the classical artist still believes that arts should last beyond them, after them, beyond their disappearance from the globe. The new artists, on the other hand, believe in the total ephemeral nature of art. A piece of art is created, it is viewed by the people, then like folding your camp and going back home, fold the damn thing and go back home. So there are extremities of this kind under which you have to look at the scene. Other aspect of it, that there was a time when we used to not get so influenced by what is happening in the world around. Because the world around was not so easily accessible. Now the world is in your neighborhood. So what's happening anywhere reaches you almost the same day. Whereas it used to take a few years, Impressionism took a long while, and Expressionism took a long while, and Cubism took a long while to arrive here and start influencing our artists. Our artists started reacting to them. Now, anything that happens in Berlin or in Paris or in New York arrives the same day. You come to know about it so fast. So there is this phenomena of two kinds again. One, there are artists who believe we should be local. We should be, if at all, rooted in the local, and maybe by this local we may become global. But we need not aspire to be global. It is enough for us to be doing what we are doing in our circumstances, in our historical memories, our racial inheritance, etc. There are the other kinds who think, no, we should be able to speak in a language which is now globally shared. So again, you have two extremities. You have a great trust, a classical belief in the local, and you have a sort of a incredible lure of the global. And you find both kinds. At the moment, for instance, there are three, I'll just cite this by way of example, that's all. Guggenheim is planning an exhibition, a retrospective of B.S. Gaitonde. Gaitonde during his lifetime never had a major exhibition, much less a retrospective. And the National Gallery of Modern Art has been announcing it for a long while, but never got to doing it. Gaitonde is like John Cage, who said, I have to say nothing to you, and that's what I'm saying. So Gaitonde's art could be described as trying to say nothing. During his time, he was acknowledged by peers and this, that, and the other, but he didn't have that kind of a global recognition. We have in the Chicago Art Institute today, or perhaps near about, an exhibition of Neelima Sheikh's work on Kashmir. A huge exhibition, which exhibition is not the usual sort of conventional painted, they're hanging, and there are all kinds of things within the exhibition. It's being done in Chicago just now. We had just had an exhibition of Subodh Gupta in the National Gallery of Modern Art, where you had these utensils made into wonderful trees and what you have. Now all of them are examples of the local, deeply locally rooted, becoming global. We had this already in classical music, we already had this in classical dance. Luckily now, we are having it in visual arts also. This is one trend which I think is, according to me, my understanding. I'm not an art critic, I'm an art lover. And the lover has his blindnesses, you know, I mean, otherwise why should he be a lover? Visionaries don't love anybody, except some vague light somewhere. But those who live in the lure and love of the world have these blindnesses, or let's say blind spots or whatever. But to me it appears that Therefore, it's very difficult today. People will say, oh, but there is no particular movement. Oh, thank God that there is no movement. Visual arts have been very fond of having movements. Many movements came to visual arts and many movements went from visual arts. Impressionism started in visual arts, went over to music, went over to other forms of creative expression. Now there is no movement because there is such a mind-boggling plurality. Now to return briefly to the question of where are the artists? Now in India there has been a great tradition of anonymity of the artists. In fact, having names of the artists has become a phenomena not more than 100 years ago. You see, it's a very brief history. You don't know who did Ajanta, you don't know who sculpted Khajuraho or Bhubaneswar or all these great temples. You don't know who painted the great miniatures. You know some names now, Mansukh or whatever, because people like B.N. Goswami have unearthed them. So we had a great tradition of anonymity. What mattered was art, not the artist. In fact, one of the contributions of the modern is to give names to the artists, to give them both a name, a presence, and a recognition. So now you buy, many of these buyers buy what? Not a work of art alone. They buy a work of art by so and so that they are able to say. So one can say, artists are very much there. In fact, perhaps more than being necessary. They are now being sort of eulogized, they are being praised, they are books and artists. And visual arts are very lucky in that. Visual arts are much better documented than, for instance, the performing arts. You don't have a great book on Shambhu Mitra or Al-Qazi. You don't have a great book on any of the great dancers, on Yamini Krishnamurti or whatever. But you have books, and more than one, on many of the artists. So there is a body of intellectual critical mass also being created about visual arts, which sadly is not happening to the same extent or at the same level as should have happened in the case of performing arts. At some point I have to shut up, and I shut up now.
We know you who you are. These are very disturbing now.
What she just said, 90% of our day-to-day experience is visual. In a country where the extraordinary, innumerable temples and architectures and monuments of very high quality, the Gothic and the Islamic architecture, the elevation shows the plan. In all other Indian architecture, it doesn't show. The bracket is the woman is holding the load as if she's holding a flower, not showing the load bearing. And next to it, you cannot have an ugly parrot green building. You know, I think somewhere Indians are at a loss in political arena, in art and culture. We are frankly lost people in a great country. We do not have to go to the West. Everything what Ashok is saying and every part, the interior designer for last 50 or 100 years buying Picasso, Matisse and Van Gogh and putting it in your sitting room. Interior designers buy the book to show it. So if you say Picasso, everybody knows it. One young lady, a socialite from Delhi telephoned me from London and said, Jatin, where can I get Daniel? I said, who is Daniel? She said, you don't know Daniel? I said, his uncle and nephew were with the British Army, the documented things of democracy, this, that, etc. And one wonderful thing of the British Army, Indian Army didn't copy that there should be in their team, there could be a dancer, there could be a painter, and who will document. An extraordinary documentation has been done of our grass people, of our dancers, of our ethos, monuments and everything like that. But I'm at a loss in a country like ours, where we do not have to look outside our window, whether it's architecture, dance, music, jewelry, furniture, you name anything. You name any kind of painting or sculpture. When a villager picks up a rolling stone from the river, which is rounded in the course of this erosion, and puts it under a bamboo bush, puts vermilion on it as an installation, and everybody pay their obeisance and put the ghoda and hathi there and ram karte hain. This kind of abstraction do not exist anywhere in the world. What do you think of installation? When you use the word, I'm just rambling at a random because I'm very upset, angry, because I'm a practitioner. You please understand this. And fortunately, I've had the occasion and to watch theatre and cinema and dance and music over 50 years. And I'm at a loss in a country like ours. You know, if furniture is done, when you put your hand and it's rounded and you release your tension. All the jewelry are not for decoration, they are the nerve centers of the body. All the dance gestures come from nature. And of course, the Vishnu, Dharmottara and the prince going and learning from a guru, and the guru telling you to go and learn rhythm and talam, and then you go to this and the sculpture, and eventually the prince is put in the nature. Kapda dhulao, bartan saaf karo, ped paudha dekho, and wash it. So you are attuned to nature so that you are listening to the ripples of the water and the wind and the breeze and the mrudimalaya and all that. And then you are ready. So when we say nature is the best teacher. Now, an American artist does a 20 feet red. And he said that if this falls apart, it's not my job, it's the job of the restorer. In a country of 200 years, dictating to the restorer, and I dislike this word global. This is a country where they talk about and you talk of the universe, universality. When Tagore said we should open our windows and to ventilate, but not to be flown away under our feet. You know, we are very sad. This is a sad country today. Look at this vulgarity of the politician who will become the prime minister. They are talking of drinking water, they are not talking of education or art and culture. Do you know when I talked to the prime minister or the minister culture at a meeting in his house? So I said, Mr. Prime Minister, you don't have a cultural advisor. Jatin bhai, can you suggest something? I said, but you have 30, 40 other advisors. And Jawahar Sarkar next morning telling me, will you become the cultural advisor? I said, you are insulting me, I'm an artist. So this is the kind of situation we have in our country. 60 years after, 65 years after independence, we still do not have a cultural policy. And many of my friends, it's good not to have a cultural policy. We have an ad hoc policy, somehow it's going on. When you say it should be open-ended, our education should be open-ended. This is a country that has fantastic education. When you talk of academia was sitting around the tree and learning, the same as Greek, and so was ours. Anybody who's designing a school, the architect, doesn't conceive that in winter the classroom could be outside there, children sitting in the sun. So we had concept of living in art and aesthetics as a way of life, not as a commodity in a proscenium for dance and music and a gallery for this. It was fantastic that the British did, the Archaeological Survey, the National Museum, the ASI and what do you call it, archive and all that. But there should be a museum next to a monument. Konark sculpture should not be taken away to Delhi. It's out of context. It had a purpose. Nehru did this, 3 academies and what you call ICCR on the lines of British Council and the Arts Council. It has lived its life. Just today, can we think of Delhi, forget the rest of the country. Ask a common man or a taxi driver whether he knows National Museum, Lalit Kala Academy, IGNCA, NGMA, nobody knows. You go to London and tell the driver, take me to British Museum. Sure. Not because they are more sensitive, more learned than us. It's a part of our education. That's why we talk of sanskar. That's why we talk of sanskar. Where your upbringing? Your parents were role model. Your elder brother was role model. And your school teacher, your headmaster, your doctor, your post officer. So what kind of vulgar situation we live in? Somebody asking me 15 years ago, will you teach me drawing, sir? Now he says, hello Jatin, is a famous artist today. It's a kind of vulgarity, you know. And I see a velvet bell, a dear friend of mine, in a national museum in San Francisco. The same bell I see in Sweden and everywhere, the duplicates made. This is a country where our artists did not replicate anything. The same classical musician or a dancer when he sang and danced, and the same raga was rendered in a different way. When, what's the name, Bala Saraswati in IFX, I remember, on that stage, just standing and tucking a sari, doing Krishna Nivekani, I cried. I have seen Sri Sivarama Murthy, the director of the National Museum, say, Jatin bhai, I want to come and see your painting. He will come and plonk on the floor and sit down. He doesn't know anything, but he's a mini traditional historian. He said, Baba, kya yellow lagaya, kya orange lagaya. There were people, but even Kumar, Virendra Kumar of the Kumar Gallery will go to a party 30 years ago and say, Raku 2 baje, main aa raha hu tera painting dekhne ke liye. Or Ramachandran, me, Paramjit were waiting for 5 years to have a show. We were given a group show. Having a show, J.R.D. Tata, Hall class and Dr. Bhava, after a chairman's meeting coming out and skipping lunch to come to an exhibition. So this is the kind of menu that we had. And we have had thousands and millions of anecdotes where the Mughal emperor goes to listen to a musician in disguise and so on. How can, Manu Parekh used to say, we studied in JJ, so Jatin, 20 saal ho gaya, koi artist nahi bana. Or JJ. And Baroda, you see, South Niketan, Madras school, something later, but Bombay, Madras and Calcutta were the British art schools done 160 years ago. And to easel painting came into being, very good, our synthesis between our miniature, our temples, our relief sculptures and dance and music, then got synthesized with the Mughal and then with the British and all that. But this easel, as Ashok was saying, there was no signature. Today the signature become larger because our mentor is Picasso, which is a stupid thing. If I'm looking at the West, I look at Da Vinci or Michelangelo. You see, the whole Western concept of art is the beautification of the body. The whole approach to art in dance, music, painting, architecture is poetics, kavitatmak both, kalatmak both. It's not the beautification of body, the lalitya, the erotica is not the vulgarity of sex, and so on. So, somebody getting a frontal photograph of his, enlarged to the life size, and putting in an exhibition. What wonderful, wonderful. But look at them, the sculptures of Konark and Khajuraho. A beautiful turn of a female, almost smiling, almost talking to you, with beautiful breasts. And in a country when you are doing the Saraswati Vandana, you are talking of the Ma, you have beautiful breast, you are Stana Jugala, and you are talking of the thighs like the banana trunks. And you go to Quranic and then shy, no, don't look there, you know, because of erotica. And it has not been explained by our teachers that you, through different stages of a temple, you go in, and then the dancers and the musician, then the deity, when you go to the Garbhagriha. And contemporary artists are not interested in the tradition, etc. If you do a portrait, you are an academician, because 99% of the contemporary